Well, we are very blessed to have a wonderful new Pope from Chicago, the land of deep dish pizza. I heard he might declare New York style pizza a venial sin. So today I want to look at the life of St. Damien the Leper, one of the most inspiring Catholic saints of the 19th century, this great priest from Belgium who was born in the year 1840. He was one of 8 children. 2 of his sisters became nuns. One of his brothers became a priest. He was born into a poor farming family. As a young boy, he learned how to plant crops and grow fruits and vegetables and to raise animals and to do woodworking. And this would later be so beneficial when he was working with the lepers on Molokai in Hawaii. And he, as a young boy, had a very difficult time learning Latin, and he did not speak French very well, so he figured he would become a brother rather than a priest. And so because he had such a difficult time with his studies, especially Latin, Greek, and philosophy, he took the name Damien as his name when he entered the congregation of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary, as his brother had done. And at this time, the bishop of Hawaii asked for missionaries. And so Father Damien's brother was supposed to go, but he became sick. And so Father Damien begged that he would go in his place to become a missionary in Hawaii. So we spent 6 years working on the main island of Hawaii, but then there was an outbreak of leprosy. And so the king of Hawaii and the government rounded up all men, women, and children that had contracted this horrible disease of leprosy, arrested them, and took them to a little island called Molokai, which was like a natural prison. It had the sea on one side and then a large cliff on the other. People could only get there by being dropped off by a boat. And then this leper colony was formed. And it was, some people called it Devil's Island because it was a natural prison. People were sent there and really abandoned. And so the conditions were horrible. I'll read a few quotes here. It says, children were abandoned by their parents and quote unquote adopted on Molokai to become virtual slaves. Women and young girls were forced into a life of prostitution in order to have friends to help take care of them. When they had become too disfigured, they were chased away. Stealing, drunkenness, and quarrels were common. On the island there were no police to keep civil order, no priests to bring the sacraments to better the moral atmosphere, and no doctors and nurses to offer medical care. Although the government did supply some food and clothing, it was not sufficient. And says a small group of dedicated Catholics on the island pleaded with their bishop to send a priest to administer the sacraments. And so the word went out, and Father Damien volunteered. And they thought that maybe they would just do a 3-month rotation. But when he went, he knew that he would stay there for the rest of his life, and he would stay there for 16 years. And he would befriend the people, hear their confessions, baptize them, and teach them how to raise animals and grow vegetables and fruits and do woodworking and build houses. And it was a remarkable time that he spent there for 16 years. And here's another quote. It says, one of Father Damien's hardest crosses was the fact that since he had no other priest, he himself could not receive the sacrament of penance. It is said that once he rowed out to harbor to a supply ship which had another priest on board. He asked that the priest be allowed to land so he could go to confession. When this request was denied, he asked to receive the sacrament right there. He called out his confession in a loud voice to the priest on board and received absolution. What a beautiful act of humility that was. So Father Damien would build churches and houses there, and he would distribute food and clothing. He would write to other people for donations of food and clothing. He would dress their wounds and help to build these homes. And he built a hospital on the island, and he begged for more help. And eventually, I believe it was the king of Hawaii wrote over 100 letters to religious congregations throughout the world, and only one religious order responded, and that was Sister Mary Ann Cope from Syracuse, New York. And she would go and take care of Father Damien after he contracted leprosy himself. He accidentally spilled boiling water on his foot, and he realized he could feel no pain. And he says, "I have become one of you." And so he had contracted leprosy during the time before he died at the young age of 49. There were about 8,000 men, women, and children that had lived on Molokai during that time period, and he was able to baptize and many of them and brought them into the faith. And Sister Mary Ann Cope helped to nurse Father Damien and take care of him when he died in 1889. St. John Paul II beatified Father Damien the leper in 1995. He was canonized by Pope Benedict XVI in the year 2009. And I love that saying from the Lord, there's no greater love than to lay down one's life for another person. And that's what Father Damien did. He laid down his life for these poor souls who had contracted leprosy. And it was really thanks to Robert Louis Stevenson, who was a long time admirer of Father Damien, that the word of this leper colony became known throughout the world, and countless people did donate, and eventually more houses and hospitals and nurses and doctors were eventually sent there, and the leper colony was closed in 1969 thanks to the cure for leprosy, Hansen's disease, and so it has been largely removed from the world, thanks be to God, due to the special treatments now for those with Hansen's disease. So I would encourage you to get a copy of this book called Modern Saints. And you can see a picture of Father Damien when he was ordained and what he looked like after he contracted leprosy. And this is a wonderful, wonderful book where you see the men and women that he ministered to in the leper colony. So he truly was the Mother Teresa of the 19th century, and such an inspiring figure. Read the life of Father Damien the leper, or go online and watch some of the movies about him. So we pray today, Saint Damien the leper, pray for us.